All right, we have some breaking news today. Claire's just filed for bankruptcy again. This is the second time in 7 years that Claire's has filed for bankruptcy. And guess what? A private equity debt bomb is behind it. So in this video, we're gonna break down how private equity completely dismantled Claire's and which other brands that they have wrecked, what other ones they are wrecking, and who really takes the $1.9 billion loss when the debt gets completely wiped out from them pleading bankruptcy. Before we get into the video though, 90% of you guys watching are not subscribed. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel to get more amazing videos like this every single week. In this video, we're going to be covering Claire's Chapter 11, how private equity broke Claire's and shut them down, who actually eats the $1.9 billion debt, because when a company pleads bankruptcy, their debt gets wiped out. But who eats that? Did the banks eat that? This is the second time, remember, that Claire's went bankruptcy in the last 7 years. So the first time they went bankrupt and they pled bankruptcy, right? They got wiped out of their debt. Private equity bought them again. And we're gonna go over all of that story, all right? The private equity kill list, other brands that they have broke, what this means for consumers and investors, lessons to take away, and then we'll wrap up the video. So first, let's get started with Claire's Chapter 11, the quick facts. So this was filed today, filed August 6, 2025 in Delaware. It lists $1 to $10 billion in both assets and in liabilities. The stores will stay open for now while they hunt for somebody to buy the company and get them out of bankruptcy. The core issue is that they have $1.3 billion of high interest debt coming due next year in 2026, and the refinance is practically impossible at today's rates. So they probably locked in some earlier rates at 3, 4, 5%. Now they're going to be at 6, 7, 8%. It's going to be really, really tough for them to get out of that. So how did private equity break Claire's? So in 2007, Apollo Global Management bought them for $3.1 billion in a LBO. And then after they bought them for $3.1 billion, they loaded over $2 billion of debt onto the balance sheet. This is very, very common of private equity companies. After they buy a business, they will load it up with debt. And what happened 10 years later? They filed bankruptcy on pretty much all of that freaking debt. So a company bought them for 3.1, they load them up with a ton of debt. Maybe there was hardly any debt on the balance sheet, so they get a ton of loans, they get their money out of the deal, and then 10 years later, they've gotten their money out from dividends and all that kind of stuff, but the business is not making money because they have so much debt now. So 10 years after Apollo bought them, they filed bankruptcy and they wiped out $1.9 billion of debt, but Claire's releverages to stay afloat. So they get their debt removed, the $1.9 billion, it just goes to La La Land. We'll go over that. Where does that go? Who pays for that? But that goes into La La Land, and now Claire's re-leverages to stay afloat. So they go and get new debt. So they pretty much plead bankruptcy, shut it down, right? And then they re-leverage. So how did they go about that? We're going to talk about in this video. How do they go about re-leveraging their debt to stay afloat? And then in 2025, rates double, cash flow can't cover the payments anymore, and now they have pled their second bankruptcy in frickin' 7 years, which is insane. So the business wasn't dead. Like, people are still going to the malls and buying all their stuff, but the debt was completely lethal to the business. So this first $1.9 billion debt, which it seems like they're doing it again, who actually eats that $1.9 billion? Because obviously Claire's is pretty easy for them. They can just plead bankruptcy and then somebody else has to take the hit. So who actually takes the hit? So a couple of different things. One, creditor, typical outcome in Chapter 11, and who takes the loss. So if they are a secured lender, which is big banks, CLO funds, they swap a chunk of debt for new equity or discounted terms. So they may get 60 to 90%, 90 cents on the dollar, but they will restructure their debt. So if they owe Claire's $2 billion, they'll be like, hey, all right, how about you give us equity in the business and we'll take $1 billion out. So we'll relieve you of $1 billion in debt. We get to have more ownership of the business. We want to keep it afloat. We like the business. It's just the debt and interest rates are too high. So that's what secured lenders can do. Who will take the loss is obviously the bank shareholders and the CLO investors. Now, if you have an unsecured bondholder or vendors, they're going to get pennies on the dollar or a small equity slice. This is going to be mutual fund holders, pension funds, suppliers. So pension funds that are investing in these kinds of things are not going to get shit. So the first lender is going to be, the first tier is going to be secured lenders. Now, private equity sponsors. Equity is a last in line. It's usually wiped out and they may inject fresh cash for a small post bankruptcy stake. So the PE fund limited partners. So private equity that's investing is going to get completely obliterated as well. Even though they made a lot of business from putting debt on, taking their money out, so they might not have very much money in it, but their equity is pretty much worthless. But that's the problem with a lot of private equity companies, is that they're investing in these businesses, loading them up with debt, taking their money out, moving on to the next thing, and just running the business into the ground because they've already made their return. They don't really care about the equity they have in the business. They've already gotten their return on investment, from what I've seen from a lot of them doing this. Public shareholders, sadly, equity goes to zero. Retail investors or index funds. So this is pretty sad. The retail investors, you and me, that invest in these businesses, if they're publicly traded, pretty much get nothing. We pretty much lose everything, all the equity that we have, because all we have is equity in these. So there's no taxpayer bailout. The lenders and bondholders who took the risk take the hit, and the secured lenders are going to get the biggest deal out of this because they have $2 billion in debt on a $3 billion business. Other brands that private equity has done this for, Toys R Us, you guys obviously know them. What went wrong? They had $5 billion of debt and no e-commerce runway. Payless Shoes, $600 million in debt, mall traffic crashed. Gymboree, I don't know if you guys remember them. Shopko, J. Crew had $1.7 billion in debt. Fashion flops, COVID. So the pattern is that they will go into a business, add high leverage, no cash for innovation, they have some external shock, and then they plead bankruptcy. So these are all businesses that were doing great. Private equity bought them. They stacked them up with a shitload of debt, which they didn't have before. They strip out all their cash, so now they just have a ton of debt on the business with no cash. Then something happens, right? There's some external factor. So you have COVID, mall traffic crashes, everybody's going online instead of Toys R Us in store. So you have Amazon, all these different things. And then they eventually just plead bankruptcy because they don't have the cash to innovate to handle the external shock. So they just plead bankruptcy. And this has happened over and over and over again, as you can obviously see, with all these different businesses that private equity has killed. Now, what does this mean for you and me as a consumer and the investors? Gift cards and piercings are honored for now, so please use them ASAP if you are a consumer of Claire's. Mall landlords are going to have another vacancy acceleration with dead mall spiral. So if you are investing in real estate and you are investing in malls or retail and you have Claire's, be careful, be warned that this is probably one of many different big box brands that is going to go under. Investors, over leveraged deals die first. Same lesson in real estate. If you over leverage in anything, you're going to be burnt out. And a lot of people love to leverage and they want to add more debt and want to do all this kind of stuff. Debt is great. Yes, I agree, but it's way better with real estate than with a business. To actually lever up your business and have that much leverage in your business and you don't have the cash to actually pivot, that's where things go wrong. So some key lessons to take away: debt is a tool, not a parachute. Stress test every deal at 200 plus bips in interest rate. So if you have like a interest rate at 4%, test it at 6%, see what happens. And choose your partners wisely as well. If you are looking to grow your business, invest in real estate, choose the people that you partner up with very, very wisely, because there's these kinds of private equity snakes in the real estate land as well. Right? So just choose the people that you're investing with the right way. Look at their track record. What has actually happened with the deals they've invested in? What has actually happened with the businesses that they've invested in? Look at all these different things. Look at the reviews of these people and these companies to make sure that it's somebody that you want to align yourself with and they're going to help you get out on the other end. All right. Comment down below which PE-owned brand you think is going to be the next to fall. Please make sure to like and subscribe to my channel to get more videos like this, and comment down below which PE-owned brand do you think is the next one to fall. Do you think that Claire's is going to stick around? Have you shopped at Claire's recently? Because I definitely haven't. I haven't gone to a mall recently. So with that being said, thanks for staying until the end of the video. Appreciate it. See you on the next one.